Hey there, Dr. Alan Christensen here. We asked a lot of you your biggest concerns. Headaches came up a lot. They are a big factor for many. They can be so frustrating, and if they're bad enough, they can just completely ruin an otherwise good day. I'd love to share some tips with you all so you could have fewer of them and not have to have them slow you down or change your focus at all. Headaches, they can come out of nowhere and pretty much just change the whole tone of your day and knock you out and set you back. The good news is there's easy steps that you can do to prevent them as well as to stop them in their tracks. I want to make a distinction first off and talk about structural versus chemical headaches. So structural ones, those come about because your structure, your alignment, your muscles, there's something that's too tight, too loose, being pulled, inflamed, irritated. We think a lot about structural headaches when they start with pain in the neck and they spread to the back of the head and move out from there. There's also chemical headaches, and those in general are things that create spasms of the blood vessels that line the scalp. And there's nerves around those vessels. So when there's a spasm, a constriction that occurs, there's pain on those nerves. Headaches are more chemical in nature when they're more diffuse, especially near or around the eyes or along the temples. So first off is structural or chemical. When they're structural, the main remedy for preventing is really improving structure. Getting massage on a regular basis can be a wonderful step. Simple things like just loosening and stretching. A good trick about managing your body's posture is that if you are sitting for your work or your positions for a long period of time, try a 20-20-20 rule. So every 20 minutes, get up for 20 seconds and move your head side to side 20 times. That by itself can go a long way towards reducing tension. Our head is like the weight of a bowling ball, and there's a few small little structures in the occipital triangle that bear a large amount of the load of that, and they get tight, they get sore. It's hard to be in that same hunched position all the time. So 20-20-20, every 20 minutes for 20 seconds, move your head side to side 20 times, take the tension off of it. Get massage. Look at treatments like acupuncture, also things like prolotherapy, physical therapy. In most cases, headaches, when they are structural, they come about because some ligaments were loosened. And that can happen from vehicle accidents, the classic whiplash where your head moves fast. That can also come about from chronic arthritis. But when ligaments get too loose, your muscles have to tighten to compensate, and they pinch the nerves, and that hurts. So the stronger your ligaments are, the less the muscles have to spasm. And that's what therapies like that can all help with. So the chemical headaches, we want to think about things that trigger that spasm. And one of the first considerations is to make sure you avoid foods that can do that, foods that can cause inflammation. Some of these are more particular to you versus someone else, and others affect anyone. So particular foods, that's the intolerances, that's the allergies, the sensitivities, the intolerances. And if you're not clear on what yours are, good to figure that out. If you're not certain, cut out all the big classic ones. Dairy, wheat, eggs, sugar, gluten, soy products, corn. Those are some of the real big ones. And if you're off of those, from there, you can safely reintroduce a few, especially eggs being some of the most healthy of them, and see if they are affecting you or not. Testing can be a great option too to get more clarity on particular triggers for you personally. Some things that can affect anyone, sugar, fried foods, preservatives, in different ways, those things raise the chemicals of inflammation, and they make it to where it takes less to cause that spasming to occur and have you lapse into that headache mode. Now, caffeine deserves a little special attention. Caffeine's a very strong vasodilator, and that means it opens those blood vessels. And a lot of headache remedies, like Excedrin, for example, are based on caffeine. And in many cases, it's effective in the short term. The tough part is that it is something that can trigger them in the long term with regular use. So if you weren't a caffeine user and you had a random headache, it might do a really good job stopping that headache. But if you are a regular user, you may be sensitive, and it may be something that causes them to come on. If you have regular headaches and you use caffeine day in and day out, give yourself a 2-week holiday. Just see if your headaches become less frequent. If they do, you've got one more piece of control that you can manage them with. If they don't, go back to it, no harm, no foul, but test that at least once if you are a regular user. It can be a big factor. The other consideration is that many headache treatments, especially those that have caffeine, they can cause rebound headaches, meaning that in the day or so after the medicine's taken, you're more apt to get a headache than you would be otherwise. So be aware of that. That's true for caffeine, ergotamine compounds, and the tryptin class medications, such as Imitrex or Zomig or Maxalt. Those are ones that can be very effective immediately, but really cause big rebounds. Some older treatments like butalbital also have very high rates of rebound. And I've seen many people where it's been really tough because they take these medicines frequently and they have headaches all the time. And if they do stop the medicine at first, they get even more headaches. The solution really is to detox and come off of them, but it is harder in the short term. So don't get yourself hooked in the first place if you're not there already. So here's a pretty neat treatment with no side effects, no harm. I mentioned how it's vascular. It's about blood that's constricted. So you can move blood. You can adjust blood flow by just using hot and cold liquids. That's what happens when you bump yourself and you put ice on it and it feels better. You're moving blood away from that area. You're closing those vessels. So with these being constricted, you want to shift that. So the trick to do that is you want to move blood out of those constricted vessels. So first off is take some cold packs. Frozen veggies work really good for this. It's always nice to have a few giant bags of like peas or mixed vegetables in the freezer for reasons like that. They work as well as the pre-made bags, if not better, and put those where it hurts. As you're doing that, take a bucket of warmer water and have your feet in that. Ideally, that's going to be about 100, 105 degrees, so it's warm but very tolerable. And what you're doing is you're routing blood out of these stuck vessels and towards the opposite end of your body. So you're taking that pressure down. And it can be a very dramatic way to stop a headache in a matter of just moments. Often it's helpful to be in a dark, quiet place where you're doing that and take a few deep breaths. Another great treatment is magnesium. Magnesium in baths or in IV forms can be very dramatic. What happens is that magnesium just relaxes muscle tissue, and that relaxes the smooth muscles that make the vessels cramp to begin with. Magnesium pills are nice. Many people are low in it. The pills don't work in the short term. They don't work to stop a headache that's there and affecting you right now. But in forms like in a bath, like take a 2-pound carton of Epsom salts, mix that thoroughly in your tub, soak in that. You can get some transdermal magnesium that can help that way. They also make magnesium oil, which is technically not an oil. It's just a very saturated, hypertonic liquid solution. You can rub that on, especially if it's somewhere like the back of your neck where you feel the tension occurring. And there's also IV doses of magnesium, and they're very powerful. Many natural clinics will offer that as a treatment to stop an acute headache. So other issues about headache treatments, apart from the more classic headache medicines, we'll see things like anti-inflammatories used. And that's going to be Excedrin, aspirin, Aleve, Tylenol, ibuprofen. And these things sometimes work, but by and large, they all have some drawbacks. Tylenol's a little different, but all the others, they do thin the intestinal lining. And it's not uncommon that I mentioned how foods can be triggers and reactive foods can be triggers. The healthier your intestinal lining is, the fewer reactive foods you'll have. So you don't want to hurt that. You don't want to erode that. And that's exactly what happens from regular use of aspirin, ibuprofen, Aleve, Excedrin. They erode the intestinal lining. And they can also harm your kidneys. I've seen healthy people take doses that have been within recommended ranges for long periods of time and have severe kidney damage from those medications. Many experts have argued that there's more than 30,000 emergency room admissions per year from dangerous stomach bleeding from just over-the-counter anti-inflammatories. So better to avoid. A couple of better options. Curcumin is one of my favorite natural ingredients. It's an extract from turmeric. And it works like anti-inflammatories work, but it doesn't hurt your stomach. It's actually helpful for the stomach. When you are in pain and things are acute, you can use it in rather high amounts. There's no drawbacks to it, no real harm or downside to it. The better forms have carrier compounds that make them absorb effectively, mostly phosphatidylcholine-based carriers. And I've heard some folks who are smart and very cautious of ingredients have seen that phosphatidylcholine may be derived from soy, and they're avoiding soy. To be really precise, the negative parts of soy are the isoflavones and the lignans and also some of the other protein compounds. So the phosphatidylcholine from soy is harmless. It doesn't have those drawbacks that soy does otherwise. It actually has a lot of good things going for it in general. I also like ginger and a compound called boswellia. These are ingredients that naturally lower inflammation and also help to break that cycle of chronic pain. Ginger is also unique because it also acts on platelets. And part of the cycle is the vessels are tight, but part of the other cycle is the blood is thick. So when your blood is thicker and clotting more easily, it's more apt to get jammed up and create that cycle of pain. So ginger works on that in a couple of different ways. It lowers inflammation, but also makes the blood more thin and causes less platelet aggregation. And very safe, no real downsides to it. Boswellia is a really neat ingredient. You've heard about like the gifts to the baby Jesus in the story, the frankincense, myrrh, and gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So frankincense, that's boswellia, and that's a tree resin. And it's something that has strong aromatic properties and lots of data showing that it's a helpful anti-inflammatory. So with some easy, safe tricks, managing your diet, keeping away from the inflammatory foods, and having some great rescue options when they are acute, you can be headache-free or have much fewer of them safely. Take great care, and we'll talk again soon.